Matt Walsh is a conservative commentator who started as an online blogger and has recently gone viral by attacking what he terms the left's war on reality. More specifically, he is challenging the redefinition of gender and sex identity, what the government now terms, quote, trans rights. He spends most of his time making videos and giving public lectures explaining why and how, quote, this ideology has taken over the culture. In other words, how is it that someone who is born a male is now to be legally accepted by society as a female? In this clip from a recent lecture, Mr. Walsh explained the first strategy used to, quote, infiltrate society largely through language.
Okay, the trans agenda has infiltrated our society largely through language, and I don't mean that the gender ideologues use language to make compelling arguments. Not at all. Rather, they manipulate language itself. They talk about preferred pronouns, but a pronoun is a grammatical construct. It has to be deployed according to the laws of grammar, not the fickle whims of the individual to whom it refers. You know, if I'm standing on this stage and you want to communicate to somebody else about the fact that I am standing on this stage, you will say, he is standing on that stage. It would be grammatically and factually incorrect to say they are standing on the stage, as that indicates more than one person on the stage, which there is not. Prepositions, nouns, and pronouns and verbs, I mean, unless they're used in a fictional story or poem or something, are usually meant to convey objective facts about reality. If they're not going to perform that function, then they no longer perform any function at all, and meaningful, useful words have been reduced to impotent nonsense. How crazy is it that this is what people think and that so many people just accept it? Second point, using an incorrect pronoun, incorrect as in a pronoun that doesn't properly convey objective reality, is not only nonsensical, but it's also dishonest. Now, I may be lying with the best intentions, but a lie is a lie. I am conveying an untruth. It's bad to convey untruths because the person I'm speaking to, whoever it is, deserves to know the truth. And if I don't think they deserve to know the truth, then I shouldn't be saying anything to them at all. And also the person I'm referring to deserves the truth, which is why if I'm talking directly to that person, I'm also going to use the correct pronoun. A confused and deluded person needs the truth. He doesn't need us to participate in and encourage his delusion. That might be what he thinks he wants, but it's not what he needs. It's not going to help him in the long run. But doesn't grammar and language evolve over time? That's the other thing you always hear. Well, it does. However, language evolves according to coherent rules and standards. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people making up their own rules individually, which isn't evolution. That's just the collapse of language. In order for language to work, there have to be shared rules that we all understand and agree to, and that makes sense. If you don't have that, then there's no way to communicate. This is a top-down change. The grammar rules are being changed proscriptively. Our cultural elites have decided for ideological reasons that we ought to be using different words, and they are berating and scolding and punishing us until we comply. That is not evolution of language. This is an intentional manipulation of language, which is a very different thing. And yet the cultural elites keep using it and pushing it and pushing it, hoping that eventually people will submit and just start adopting it in daily use. If and when that day happens, they'll then turn around and say, well, look at that, language evolved. But calling that natural evolution, it's like injecting drugs into a lab rat and calling it natural evolution when it grows a third ear. That's not natural.
Walsh, of course, is right to say that a pronoun is a grammatical construct that has to be deployed according to the laws of grammar, not the fickle whims of the individual to whom it refers. Prepositions, nouns, and pronouns, and verbs are usually meant to convey objective facts about reality. But now, meaningful, useful words have been reduced to impotent nonsense. And then he gives this example. It would be grammatically and factually incorrect to say they are standing on the stage, as that indicates more than one person on the stage, which there is not. Yet Mr. Walsh remains a zealous defender of the doctrine of the Trinity, a peremptory pontifical Catholic defender, no less. For example, over the years, he has tweeted out things like, the Trinity is definitely biblical. My whole point is that something can be biblical without being explicitly stated in the Bible. The Trinity proves this point beyond doubt. The Trinity is a biblical concept because it is in line with the Bible and can be inferred from it, but it is not explicitly stated. Words like consubstantial, eternally begotten, these are theological ideas developed in the centuries after the gospel was written. The Trinity is not an obscure theological theory. It's foundational to Christianity, and it's never once explicitly stated in the Bible. That's my point. Well, my point is that for whatever, quote, good self professed Christians or Catholics like Mr. Walsh may do, they would best serve society and indeed ultimately themselves by adopting that same logic they use for other societal issues when it comes to teaching about the God of the Bible. But the problem I see that continues to plague Christendom is people leaving their brains at the church door. In particular, when it comes to telling the world who the one God of the Bible is and who his only begotten Son is. The fact is that the so called doctrine or teaching of the Trinity can only make sense as a mystical or spiritual experience. As the noted British author and former Catholic herself, Karen Armstrong, wrote in her New York Times bestseller, A History of God. The Trinity was not a logical or intellectual formulation, but an imaginative paradigm that confounded reason. For many Western Christians, the Trinity is simply baffling. Notable dictionaries and commentaries like the Oxford Companion to the Bible agree when they say that the New Testament offers no new doctrine of God. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is now the God and Father of Jesus Christ. Thus, all Old Testament theology is implied in the New Testament. Ultimately, let's go back to the words of Jesus himself in his prayer to his God and Father in John 17. Now, this is eternal life, that they know you, that is the Father, the only true God. And note Jesus' prophetic last words of prayer using the Amplified Bible Classic Edition. O just and righteous Father, although the world has not known you and has failed to recognize you and has never acknowledged you, I have known you, and these men understand and know that you have sent me. I have made your name known to them and revealed your character and your very self.